Hey guys, this is JP from John Paul Music UK, and in this video we're going to show you how to get started with GarageBand on iOS. Welcome to my channel. If you've never been here before, my channel is all about music tech and looping. Please subscribe to the channel and give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help the channel grow. So GarageBand for iOS has been around for a little while. GarageBand came out with the Mac in 2004 and it came over to iOS in 2011. It's a full digital audio workstation or DAW and is available for free, completely free. It's a 32 track DAW and it's got lots and lots of features. And it's available on the iPad, the iPhone and even the iPod Touch. In these next series of videos, I'm going to be showing you how to get set up with GarageBand, how to start recording your microphone, maybe record a couple of instruments, and then I'm going to show you a couple of different scenarios. Maybe you're recording a podcast, or maybe you even want to use it for a live environment. I'm going to show you how to do a little bit of remixing as well. In this first video, we're going to have a look and understand GarageBand's interface, where things are, and how you can get set up and running. Just be aware, GarageBand is a big app. It's over 1 gigabyte. So if you are going to download it, make sure you've got enough room for the app itself and then some more space for recording. So once you've downloaded GarageBand and we open it up, you may see it has 17 on there at the moment, and they're the sound packs. So when we very first launch it, you're going to be presented with this. This says, "Welcome to GarageBand," and it's got play, record, and share. The next page it shows you is the GarageBand sound library. So once you click continue, it takes you to this. This is GarageBand, but the Files app. So the Files app is the file management system for iOS now on iOS 12 and 13. It's much more powerful on 13 if you can put 13 on your device. So you can see there it says create song, nice big plus button. Once we click on create song, you're then presented with the first screen for GarageBand, which is the instrument chooser. Now before we get going and dive into them, what I'd really recommend doing is actually going across to the sound library and tapping on it. So in the sound library we've got lots of different sounds. We've got things like R&B drummer pack, we've got the brand new Skyline Heat hip hop pack, there's more drummers there, there's rock drummers, there's tone collections for more guitar amps. So maybe you do want some of these, maybe you don't. So if you tap on one of them, so I'm going to tap on tone collection, it'll just give you a little bit of information about it. So plug in your guitar and choose from a load of new amps and stomp boxes, and there's 22 guitar effect sounds there. There's a one called Toy Box, and you can see there the content: over 400 Apple loops, 3 drum kits, 10 keyboard instruments, and 5 live loop grids. So you might want some of these, you might not. If you want to see the size of them, what you can do is obviously you can tap on them individually, or the top left-hand corner, you've got Manage Packs, and it shows you the size of each one. What we can do is obviously we can download them all. So there's just 2 I need to install to carry on, which is that one and that one. This is the first page into GarageBand, and you've got 2 routes, so you have to choose your path. So tracks is the linear way of creating a song, the more traditional way, where we've got a beginning and an end. And live loops is actually a load of cells where you can drop loops into and then create almost like a live performance. We're going to start off with tracks. Tracks has a couple of touch instruments and also a couple of ways we can make beats and also access the sound library as well. So as you can see there, we've got to start off with keyboard, and we've got Smart Keyboard, Alchemy Synth, Sampler, and more sounds. And we can just swipe across the next one. So this is drums, where you can create your own beats using a variety of acoustic and electronic drums. The next one is an amp for plugging in your guitar or bass, and it's got some simulated amps and stomp boxes. Then we've got an audio recorder, so if you're recording maybe an acoustic guitar, or if you're recording a microphone like we've got here. And then from here on in, we've actually got the touch instruments as well. So we have strings, bass, guitar, world instruments, and then we've got the drummer. So we've got the drums and the drummer. So the drums is where you make your own beat, and the drummer is a virtual session drummer which can create a beat automatically. Then we've got external, so you can play and record third-party instruments directly into GarageBand. And then finally, we have the sound library. So I'm going to start with the keyboard, and you can either just tap the keyboard right in the middle, or we've got at the bottom there Smart Piano, Alchemy Synth, Sampler, and more sounds. But for now, we're just going to tap on the main part of the keyboard. So at the very, very top, this is our transport window, and what we have is we have all the options there to get into using GarageBand. So in the top left-hand corner, we have a new document, so that was a new song. The next one will take you back to the instrument chooser, and then the next one along is the track view. Now, if you've got a 12.9-inch iPad, one of the bigger iPads, you'll see a little bit of the track view. But if you've got a smaller iPad or using the iPhone, you don't see the track view whilst you're playing an instrument. The next one along is settings, and you've got the settings there we can go into, and this is the settings for this track. So we've got output settings, plugin and effects, and master effects, and we'll go into those a little bit later. Right in the middle, we've got play, record, and go back. Right next door to that, that is the main volume control. Next door to that, we've got the metronome. So on the right-hand side, we've got 3 icons there. So we've got a loop with number 4 on it, and they're all the packs of loops that you can get and add in. They're royalty-free, and you can use them as much as you want. The gear icon is all the settings for this one song, and then you've got a little question mark there. If I tap the question mark, this gives you everything you need to know with GarageBand. So underneath that, we've got the track view on the slightly larger iPad, and you can see here a little icon of the grand piano, and we've got bars 1 to 8. Now, if you've got a smaller iPad or an iPhone, you will still see bar 1 to 8, but you won't see the actual track. You'll just see a line going across. And then you've got a plus button underneath to add another instrument. So underneath that, we've got the instrument itself. So we've got the 2 sections here. We've got the control section at the top and the play area underneath. Now, I'm going to take you through this small section in the middle, which is part of the controls area and part of the play area. So if we were to actually play a chord, we can hear that, and that's fine. And then we've got on the left hand side, we've got 2 arrows with a 0 in the middle, so I can actually go through the octaves. And there's another way to do that as well, which I'll show you in a second. And then we've got sustain, so you obviously can hold the sustain down. Let go of the hand, it's still sustained. Or I can lock it. And then unlock it. Right in the middle there, you'll see glissando. Now what that means is that as I draw my finger up and down, or my fingers up and down, it's like I'm actually drawing my fingers up and down a keyboard or piano. And that is glissando. If I tap on that, you've got scroll. So as I tap on a note and then move my finger, it'll move the keyboard up and down. And if we tap it again, we go back to glissando. There is a third option with the synthesizers, which is pitch. When you tap on it, it changes the pitch. It's like a pitch bend, as opposed to using a pitch bend wheel. On the right hand side, we've got a couple of buttons here, and it's all to do with how you play the instrument. So first of all, we've got scale, which is a really clever system. So what you can do is press scale, and you can turn off the notes. So maybe you're not very familiar with a piano, but you do know you want it in a major scale. So now we're in a major scale, they've taken away the black and white notes, and we're just left with the notes that we need. Now this song is set to C, and we can change the key of it in the settings. So if I go to settings, I can actually change the key signature, the time signature, and the tempo, and we'll go into that in a little while. I can then change this maybe to, let's just say, minor. Or if I turn it off completely, then we get our black and white notes back. This is universal across all the different touch instruments. So if you're using it maybe with strings, or you're using it with a bass guitar, this is really powerful. The next button along looks like a little keyboard, and if we tap on it, we've got access to different ways we can use it, the velocity, and also key controls. So maybe you want to use both hands. I can actually add another keyboard, and we now have access to more keys in one go. We can also change how thick they are or how thin they are, so we can make them a little bit thicker if you've got really thick fingers like me. And what you can do is you can make it really thin as well, so you can get more octaves. The next one along is an arpeggiator. So we can actually turn this on and actually change the arpeggiator, change how it's used. So you can say as played, or we can run it up and down. So if I go up and down and I just hold the C, Now that's in time to the tempo of the track. Again, we can set that in the settings up here. So this tempo is at 110 beats per minute. If we don't want that, what we can do is we can just turn that off, and you can see it goes back to white. The final button is a really clever system, which is a different way of playing an instrument. So let's say we know what chord we want, but we don't know actually how to play it on a piano because we are a guitarist or you play the strings. So what you can do is you can turn this into a chord system. So then this button on the right here, if we do that, it completely changes. So now what we've got is we've got the piano, which obviously you normally use two hands for. So we've got the right hand is white and the left hand or the bass is in grey. So we see there we can say C, or we've got F, we've got G, and I can just with one finger. It's all different variations of F there, and then the grey one is the bass notes. I think this is really, really useful for people who you know what the song structure is going to be. Maybe you've figured it out on the guitar and you know what the skeleton of the track is going to be and you want to just play along to it. Or maybe you've got an idea that you just want to get down, you want to... really quick by literally using one or two fingers to actually play an entire chord sequence. You can change these chords. So now we're in this mode. If we go to the gear icon once again, you'll see a new option which says edit chords. If I tap on that, it brings up a custom chord system. So then what we can do is if we say C there, we can actually move this up and down. So we can go C augmented 7th. And then you can change that back to major or none. None is major anyway. And then you can even change the bass note. So you can have a B and change that as well. With this system in place, there is also another option you may have noticed on the top. Obviously, it changes the way it looks. We've still got the sustain, we've still got the arpeggiator, but now we've got another system which is called autoplay. Autoplay literally lets it play to the tempo of the track in different variants. So if I turn autoplay on, it's like a dial. So it's off at the moment, and we've got to go there. You can see now there's no variances, it's just top and bottom. So now if I just press F, as we've done before, that'll just carry on until I tell it to stop by tapping it again. I can even split it up, so I say I want the C there. So with autoplay, we've got 4 different versions. I'm going to press C, and I'm going to keep it running, but I'm going to change the autoplay so you can hear the different variances. And then as we turn it off, we get our chords back. Okay, so we've seen how we play the instrument. What I want to do is I just want to show you the control section. So with the grand piano, there are no real controls other than sustain and then changing how we do the scale. So what you can do is if you tap the actual grand piano icon in the middle, you then have access to all the piano or synthesizer based instruments. So if we tap on this, it gives us a whole keyboard library, and we've got keyboards, we've got the Alchemy synth, we've got classic synths, we've got all these different ones. But for now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to change it to one down to the heavy metal organ and just watch carefully how this changes. So now in the background, we've actually got a couple more controls for the heavy metal organ. So we can see there we've got a rotation. There's a lovely animation of a speaker going around for the like a Leslie speaker, which is cool. And we've got a load of drawbars as well. And we've also got things like percussion, chorus, and a bit of distortion there. I'm gonna play that. I'm just gonna literally turn on rotation to fast. And just play with the drawbars. You can see it's instant, it works really, really well. And if you have, say, like a MIDI keyboard connected to this, you can use your MIDI keyboard and still have access to all these controls on the screen. So let me show you one of the other instruments from the synthesizers like the Alchemy synth, and this is where it really does change. So the Alchemy synth originally came from Logic and it's been put into GarageBand. So we've picked one of the sounds called digital analog, and one of the control sections now has completely changed. So I'm going to show you one or two things. So first of all, I'm just going to play a note. You can hear a little bit of a delay there and also a little bit of reverb as I take my finger off the note. Now, the first thing I said to you earlier on is there is a third option with the synthesizer when you come to the middle button here. This is glissando. We've got scroll, as we can do there, and the third option is pitch. We've got a pitch wheel on the left-hand side and a mod wheel, but what we can do is we can actually put our finger on there and you'll now see a blue dot. We're still playing G. But as you move your finger forwards or back or up or down, it changes the pitch or the modulation right there on the note. Now if you still want to do this whilst being in glissando, of course you can do this with the pitch and mod wheels here, just like a traditional synthesizer or keyboard. The next section along is a really clever section. So instead of having lots of different modulation buttons to press or anything like that, we've got them all here, and I'm going to go through them in a second. But there's this square 8-bar section, and where it says detuned sequence, we've now got filter opening, bright, hiss, warped, marimba, metallic chimes, and noise. So these have been designed by Apple. Within one sound, you've got 8. So let me show you what I mean. This is the detuned sequence. I'm going to move my finger to there. Now I'm going to tap on bright. And tap on hiss. And they're changing, and you can see the changes happening on the right hand side for things like the cutoff and the timbre. So you've got different versions of that one sound. Now, the really clever thing is you can draw your finger around so you can have a combination of them. So say you really like that, you can pause it there. Now, as you change maybe the delay or the reverb, you can actually change them anyway, but this one doesn't move, so you can change them as well. You'll also notice underneath there are 3 little dots. So what that means is if I swipe across, we've actually got access to more than just those. So this is the first one. The second one, we've got the pan modulation and the amp modulation, and then we've got a couple more there. So the compressor, the delay time, and you've got things like attack, decay, sustain, and release. The other thing you can do with the synthesizers, and if you've got one of the latest devices like one of the newer iPhones or the newer iPads that do Face ID, there's 2 things you can do which are a little bit clever. The first one is using the accelerometer in the device, and you can see next to sustain, you see this little icon with an arrow going around. If I tap on there, what it does is it puts it in the middle, and if I literally tilt the iPad, you can see that it's moving around, and you can affect it whilst actually tilting it. And then the other option, you can see a little face there, and yes, that uses Face ID to actually open up certain parts of it. So if you use Face ID, you can see it's changing the mod wheel as I'm talking. I close my mouth, and you can use that. Now, this is really clever technology, but also you can use this, for example, for the guitar. So there's a wah guitar that you can use, and then you could use your mouth to open the wah, which is really funny, but also really cool. So we've gone through some of the instruments. Now the next thing is to record. I'm going to go back into our instrument here, and what I'm going to do is we're going to go to the main categories, go to keyboards, and go to grand piano. So if you're recording a song, what GarageBand does by default is it puts it into 8 bars. So you can see at the top here we've got bars 1 to 8. There's a playhead I can drag across, and it goes up to bar 8. Now this is where we go into the settings. So settings wise, we've got a couple of things. We've got metronome and counting. So we can obviously change that and change what it sounds like. And then we've got the tempo. So you can tap the tempo, or you can obviously pick the BPM if you know exactly what it's going to be. You've got the time signature, so we've got 4/4, 3/4, 6/8. And then also the key signature. As I said before, if I then basically say, well, this thing is in A, and then we move that across, then it's still on the keyboard going to show us C3, C4. But then if I was to go into, say, scale, and I say major, you'll see now that at the bottom there it says A3 and A4. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to change this over, just keep it in C for now, and I'm actually going to use the chord system. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start recording a chord sequence, just a basic chord sequence, so you can see what happens. So we've got a metronome set up, and we've got a time signature set up, and we've also got our tempo set up. One thing we need to do is, if you want to record linearly and you just want to keep recording and keep going, there's one thing you need to change. So you can see there where I said it's got on the track menu, it's got bar 1 to 8. Next to that, you've got a tiny little plus button, and if you tap on here, what it does, it says song sections. So it works in sections. So you could have maybe an intro, then another section is a verse, then another section is a chorus, etc., etc. However, what you can do is, if you're more of a traditional musician and you know your song from beginning to end, what we can do is we can go into here and we can change it to automatic. And what automatic will do is it'll just keep recording and keep going until you say stop. I prefer this option. I know other people do use the song sections because then you can actually start splitting things up. I prefer just recording from beginning to end, so if I know the whole chord sequence, I can still record in sections if I want to, but then that way I know what I'm doing from beginning to end. So we've got our piano set up, we've got it set all to the right settings that I need. I'm going to hit record, it's going to give me a 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we're recording. And then you just hit stop when you're done. Now, any of the instruments that you record, you'll see recorded in red there and then went to green. Green is MIDI. Then you'll have blue for recording any audio, and then the last one is yellow for the drummer. So you can see there, it gives you a little bit of a piano roll, and it shows you the chords you played and when you played them, and then also where they are in the beats. There's a nice little trick you can do to actually keep it in time, and it really helps me. So when you tap on there, you've selected it, and then what we can do is we can tap on it again, and there are settings here we can go into for each individual piece of either MIDI or audio, and it does change depending on what you want to do. And what we can do is we can go into quantization. So what we can do is we can actually quantize it to however you want, so I'll say 16 there, and that just shifts everything over slightly, which is really nice. So now we've got that, I'm going to actually add another track, and we just go back to the previous page. So I can actually then go and add another track. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add one of the drummers, and we've got a nice percussion drummer, so I'm going to actually add one of the percussion ones. This loads that up straight away. I'm going to change who the drummer is. So we're going to go to Finn. So I've created that now. So we've got Finn playing, and we've got one of his tracks there, which is called Boardwalk. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hit play. So what we've been able to do now is add a drummer and have a chord sequence there as the beginnings of our new song. Now, if you don't see a plus button here, then the other option you can do is you can go to the tracks view. When you go to the tracks view, it literally takes the instruments away, and you are just left with the tracks view. And the bottom left hand corner, you'll see a little plus button, and again, that is to add another track. You can add up to 32 tracks. So I hope that gives you a bit of an insight into the basics of how to get started with GarageBand. And I'm going to be doing a couple more. This is a series of videos. I'm going to show you how we can use it for different scenarios. Things like, for example, creating your own song. Maybe you're not near a studio. Maybe this is your studio. This is absolutely free. 32 tracks that you can record onto, and obviously we can go deeper into this, right through to mixing and automation as well. And I just want to give a quick shout out to the people who've subscribed to the channel. thank you so much. It's really nice to see the comments that you like the tutorials that I'm giving you. If you've got any additional comments, then please put them obviously in the comment section below. Give this a thumbs up, and if you haven't, please consider subscribing to the channel and share it with a friend. Maybe there's someone who's struggling with looping or with GarageBand. Obviously give them my tutorial if you think it helps them. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.